Aston Villa 0, Manchester United 0. That was a game where I don't think any United fan was looking forward to it. It was a game where United fans were nervous, understandably, given the week that we've had. Ten Hag made some changes. But ultimately, that game was better, given that we're comparing to Spurs, where we lost 3-0, and Porto, where it was 3-3, but nowhere near good enough for Manchester United. And nowhere near good enough to sort of shift the conversation that exists around Erik Ten Hag. There's so many people that said before the game, this is the do or die. This is the last dance. That, like, if Erik Ten Hag's Manchester United won this game, it would change an opinion that exists inside Ineos's head. Or if he lost, it would have changed. And I just thought that was just completely wrong. But I just don't think anything happened there today that would have shifted an opinion that already exists inside their mind. That now means that this is Manchester United's worst start to a Premier League season. The numbers don't lie there. 14th, 8 points. And we were better as a collective defensive unit. Delo was hardly inverting inside. Thank Christ that we stopped that. We had two central midfielders in Eriksen and Mainu. But we had nothing going forward. And look, you heard the away end chanting attack, attack, attack. That pass from Garnacho. It was the simplest of balls. I mean, it could have been a 1-0. Overall, United's football hierarchy there. Ratcliffe, Barada, Ashworth and Wilcox watched on as United. Look, a point away at Villa, we'll say in the commentary, a point away at Villa, given how good they are this season, it's not a terrible result. But in the context of what's happened so far this season, and I revert back to the table again, 7 games in, Manchester United have got 8 points, and we have scored 5 goals. It's nowhere near good enough. And you know what it is with United this season? It kind of almost feels like you've either got one extra... We still live in the land of extremes. If Manchester United are crap defensively, we're probably going to be able to create more chances going forward. But you're going to leave tons of opportunities for the opposition to come back at you. On the other hand, there's games where United look pretty decent defensively, and I thought we did today. Aston Villa was so flat, and I think understandably so. Biggest game of their club's history in the last 40 years was midweek, where they beat Bayern Munich 1-0. They looked mentally fatigued. Physically, Man United played a day later, and we had to travel back from Portugal, so it's not really about physical fatigue going into that game. Or maybe it's a little part of that as well. I don't know. But Villa were there for the taking if United had any sort of quality going forward. And that's ultimately where we were awful. And that's what I'm saying. We were nowhere near good enough today, and we have been nowhere near good enough across the course of the season. I revert back to it. 5 goals in 7 games of football from Manchester United. Now, Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada, Man United's football hierarchy. I believe they're meeting on Tuesday. It's a pre-planned meeting, right? It's not a reaction to anything that's happened. It's a pre-planned meeting. And no doubt they're going to be speaking about the future of Erik Ten Hag. But that game there, in terms of the starting 11, by bringing in Evans and Maguire and dropping De Ligt and Martinez, it kind of felt like Ten Hag was, when managers are under pressure and they make choices you might consider strange, I think he's just putting in the players that he trusts. And Johnny Evans was man of the match. Burnley last year, everyone remember that? That was where Hannibal started. Evans across, a little ball over the top to Bruno with that volley, 1-0. There was a lot of pressure on Erik Ten Hag, and Evans delivered. And Evans delivered again there today. It genuinely is a shame he's not 10 years younger. So much better than what we've seen at centre-backs. But it was a starting 11 which raised eyebrows. And hearing Ten Hag, look, man, you're rotating De Ligt and Martinez out because of rotation. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to believe that. I mean, I certainly don't believe it. In the same way I didn't believe the idea that you're taking Marcus Rashford off at half-time away in a game that's so important to you when he scored a goal and got an assist for rotational purposes. Neither of those two things matched up to me. And it kind of puts it into perspective of how difficult it is as a manager, because you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I wanted Erik Ten Hag to rotate this season, but taking Rashford off at half-time away at Porto is not rotating. And to label it as rotating, I think, is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Now, someone in that game Bruno Fernandes, so unlucky with that free kick, by the way, so unlucky. But in that first half, all the attacks we had where we required that moment of quality, the final ball through that would create the chance, Bruno Fernandes overhit it. Bruno Fernandes, it just seems like, well, you know how he plays, man. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. He's an emotional player, and it almost feels like he's supercharging. There's just that little bit too much in his passes. The simple stuff that he found so easy before, he can't seem to do. 2 red cards in the last 2 games. It shouldn't have been a red against Spurs, and it was he gave the ref a decision to make. He might not touch the ball at Porto, but you're on a yellow card away from home in Europe. You're going to get a second yellow there, and Rashford easily could have got a second yellow in that game there. I'm happy for the idea that Ten Hag realised, inverting the load does not work. All right, let's scrap that. Good. Man United look far better structurally as a consequence. Yep, but we had nothing going forward. Garnacho, Rashford had chances. Who am I kidding? Like, Rashford is the only one who created chances. The best chance he had was probably the save from Martinez early in the second half. But if Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos have looked at Man United in this season so far, right? 7 games in, we're 14th in the table. We've got 8 points. It's been an awful start, and it's not across one game. And it's different styles. It's like there we set up with a good collective unit and we looked better, but then we had nothing going forward. Against Spurs, we conceded after 3 minutes and the heads fell off. Away at Porto, we played the typical style away in Europe where we're going to score goals, but yeah, just come on in. 2-0 up, heads gone. There's so many different kind of games that have happened and so many different situations that they've seen Erik Ten Hag in. I said this week, and I held my hand up and said, I've lost some faith in Ten Hag. The fact that he wasn't overly stubborn in keeping Martinez in was a good call today. Evans, not just for the fact that Evans played great, I suppose it was actually, but that was the right decision. Playing 2 central midfielders properly in Eriksen and Mainu, I don't understand why. Look, Ten Hag had 6 or 7 of his signings fit and on the bench. On the bench. Even Ugarte. Was that a game where we needed Ugarte? In the course of it, now that we're back on it, probably not, because I don't think Villa were that threatening. They really were quite flat. But Højlund, just our whole attack was so limp in that game. And it has been limp all season, man. I go back to it there. 5 goals Manchester United have scored in 7 games in the Premier League. And if that there was supposed to be a game where Ratcliffe watched on and looked at it and goes, okay, well, I can see that's Manchester United there. Might not be working out, but, when the players are back, you're looking at Man United there. It felt like a game where Erik Ten Hag not battened down the hatches. That would be the wrong way to describe it. But he set us up better defensively, but by doing so, maybe took a bit, and that's what I mean. There's just we can't seem to get both at once. A 0-0, it's going to be a long international break. What do you think's going to happen? Man, it's been a tough season so far. It really has.